After I went over my life, something I came to call Mother led me through strange parts of the celestial realm. I felt like I had stepped into a big, otherworldly room as the scene played out in front of me. A huge picture of Earth, sitting like a miniature wonder on a grand pedestal, took up most of this ethereal area. This detailed model of our planet wasn't just a copy, it was a complex machine that was carefully kept up by a group of smaller beings. One of them quickly became known to me as the teacher entity. Through the middle person, Mother, my attention was drawn back to this teacher, who then began to explain what the globe in front of me meant. It was taught to me that the Earth model was like a time archive, a huge changing record of everything that happened on our world. This discovery sparked my interest, and I wanted to learn more. I was eager to find out where I fit into this big picture of the universe. The teacher entity, in response to my request for information, told me to look at the Earth model and see where I was born. In an instant, a stunning view appeared in front of me, like I was flying through the sky and seeing the tapestry of life on Earth develop. One vision took me to a busy city that looked a lot like ancient Rome. The scene was historically interesting, but it didn't connect with my own experiences or interests. I felt disconnected from this historical scene, so I asked the teacher entity for more useful information. So I set out on a journey through important times in human history, looking for answers about the events that changed the course of society. During these times, there was a deep vision of sorrow. A sudden shift marked a moment of crisis amidst a happy crowd and fast cars. Even though I didn't see the exact events, I felt a wave of sadness and dread that hinted at President Kennedy's premature death. This moving vision made me think deeply about the holy reason for letting such grievous events happen. In reaction, I was hit with a harsh truth. Free will and human agency work together. Even if God could see into the future, he or she could not get involved because people make bad decisions all the time. This frightening realization showed how delicate the balance is between God's knowledge and people's freedom, highlighting how important free will is. As my journey went on, I caught glimpses of the future that gave me vague clues about important events that were about to happen, like the Supreme Court's decision to allow same-sex marriage. This event, which was expected to cause big changes in society, showed how complicated the relationship is between choices made by people, divine guidance, and the unstoppable march of history. As I looked deeper into the sky, I caught unsettling glimpses of the current situation in the United States. In the midst of heated campaigns and social unrest, I saw scenes of political unrest and moral reckoning that painted a clear picture of the difficult problems humanity faces. I had a vivid dream in which I was in the middle of a heated argument about legalizing same-sex marriage, a major problem that evangelical groups strongly opposed. At the same time, I saw Hillary Clinton become a major political figure as she and her husband, Bill Clinton, ran a strong campaign for president. Still, there were legal problems that stood in her way of becoming the most powerful person in the country. These problems made the complicated dance of political maneuvering and legal restrictions hard to see. As my images went deeper into the unstable world of American politics, I saw the rise of a controversial and hostile leader who could be recognized by his fiery speech and blonde hair. What happened was a whirlwind of public protests and political drama in the Oval Office. It painted a picture of a country caught in chaos and division. A vision full of biblical symbols helped me understand where this political turmoil came from. As I read the Bible, I saw a story of how religion changed over time, showing how ideas moved from the Old World to the North American continent. One of the main themes was how the growing power of evangelical churches in the American Southeast was closely connected to a very partisan political environment. Even though there were a lot of these churches, a scary story about religious fanaticism getting in the way of democracy appeared. With their zeal and lack of morals, these organizations tried to use their political power under the guise of divine command, which was a threat to the freedom of choice and democratic principles. As I thought about how serious these revelations were, I heard a loud call to be alert, a harsh warning to watch out for the sneaky way that religious extremism is creeping into government. When visions of the past and the future came together, a deep warning came to light. You must manage the turbulent currents of history with wisdom and unwavering resolve. I could hear the passionate expressions of social unrest resonating through the streets as the tapestry of ideas came together. I could feel the pain of African American neighborhoods in the crowds of protesters. Their voices were rising in anger against a history of systemic oppression and broken promises of freedom. When I thought about the shadows of history, I remembered the Civil War, which was supposed to free Southern slaves. Still, inequality is a big problem that makes people who don't have a say demand justice for long-lasting wrongs. During these protests, a darker presence appeared, a group of evil beings who didn't care about anyone else or the general good. Under the guise of being friends, these sneaky groups wanted to cause trouble and violence among the good. When people see them being dishonest, I beg them to resist their power, to turn away from anger, and instead accept the healing power of compassion and unity. But in the middle of all the chaos, a scary picture of a plan to destroy the very foundations of information and communication came into focus. Someone with bad intentions went after a sign of honest journalism and public debate, threatening to destroy and lie about it. The details of what happened are still unknown, but this act of mischief is seen as a very serious warning against the loss of truth and openness. As the battle grew darker, I saw a strong and mysterious army appear. No one knew where it came from or what it was trying to do, and the darkness made it look very scary. This force came from the west like a steady tide and kept coming toward a country that was already split up by fighting and disagreement. I saw the unwavering wave of violence, a flood of death that threatened to swallow everything in its path, in this fiery pit of chaos. Still, a thin thread of hope could be seen through all the death and destruction. In spite of all chances, the forces of righteousness started to win, which made it possible for a fragile peace to take hold. As the sounds of battle faded into the history books, the legacy of humanity's fight lived on. It was a sign of the unbreakable spirit of resilience and the never-ending search for justice and redemption. In the middle of these vivid pictures, the landscape of war and chaos painted a scary picture of a country on the verge of hopelessness. In the American South, the streets were filled with the frantic cries of people who were fighting for fairness and justice. But beneath the chaos, there was a more evil force at work. It was deeply rooted in the power structure, and its evil plans were hidden in secret and lies. Inside a well-protected government stronghold, a bad entity was sleeping, ready to spread chaos and sadness among the people. As the good guys got together to face this growing threat, an unspeakable horror showed up, a sign of chaos and destruction that was let loose with evil joy. While it was rising into the clouds, its laughter echoed through the holy halls of power, destroying everything in its path. Even though the darkness was getting closer, there was a flickering light in the abyss that showed strength and salvation. Because it was in the fire of conflict that the truth would finally shine through, revealing the lies and deceit that had caused the trouble in the first place. As the threat of war grew, a vision of a disaster of unimaginable proportions took shape, an explosion of unimaginable power tearing through reality with terrible rage. At its heart was Yellowstone National Park, which had gone from a peaceful landscape to a destructive whirlpool. After this terrible event, a wave of destruction swept across the continent, leaving behind a landscape marked by tragedy and loss. In the middle of all the chaos, the threat of a natural disaster loomed large. An earthquake with no precedent would cause a flood of hopelessness that would cover the countryside. As nature and people met in a tumultuous convergence of destruction, a nation's fate was in very real danger. Even though there was a lot of chaos and deep sadness, there was still a flicker of hope. This showed how strong the human spirit is and how people will always try to find redemption in the dark. Among the chaos and destruction in the tapestry of visions that unfolded before me, a new dawn, a vision of rebirth and change, rose. As the floodwaters went down and the land went still, a deep sense of peace came over the world like a healing balm for the scars of war and pain. After the noise stopped, the land started to wake up. Its once scared surface was now full of new life. As time went on, green forests grew, their branches rising high into the sky as a beautiful sign of strength and renewal. Communities started to grow all over the country, from the southeast green forests to the calm shores of Georgia and the Carolinas. These communities were filled with a lasting sense of peace and unity. I felt a strong spiritual link in these refreshed places. There was a deep respect for life and a sincere commitment to living in line with divine purpose. You could feel the happiness in these new communities, which is a live example of how spiritual awakening and community harmony can change things. As the teacher entity shared its knowledge, I saw a big picture of how humanity has changed over time. A higher spiritual plane was reached on this trip. There, the old chains of competition and division were broken, and compassion and unity took their place. Once people were free from fear and prejudice, they started on a road to enlightenment as a whole, guided by the divine light of love and understanding. The old ideas of conflict and lack gave way to a deep sense of abundance and working together in this new age. People stopped seeking power or money all the time and instead accepted their natural link to the divine. With this new point of view, people were able to use wonders to heal and change their world. When I thought about these life-changing ideas, I felt a deep sense of hope, a strong belief that people were on the verge of a new golden age. Peace and wealth were promised in this new era for anyone who was ready to accept the power of love and spiritual awareness to change their lives.